want to talk a little bit about restaurants and bars. I've always tried to be blunt, straightforward about everything that we are finding. And we try to share with you all the information that we have. I have been very candid in saying that in this reopening phase, a new chapter in the COVID-19, there is risk involved. There is significant risk. But there are also significant risk if we do not open up. And we've talked about those as well. So we can do two things at once. And it's up really to all of us to make sure that we open our economy, get people back to work, but do this in an absolutely safe way. The protocols, the rules for reopening bars and restaurants were laid down very, very clearly by the working group that we put together, made up of health officials, but also made up of people who run bars and people who run restaurants. The truth is that our economic recovery in the state of Ohio is tied directly to how successful we are in preventing the spread of the coronavirus. Stopping this spread, interrupting this spread of the coronavirus will determine how successful we are in opening up our economy. These two are tied together. You cannot have a successful reopening of the economy if we get surges in the coronavirus. And so these two are as linked together as anything can be linked together. We are talking about the slowing of the spread, and the basic facts have not changed. That can only be done by distancing. Spread of the disease, distance. The more distance, the less spread of the disease. There certainly is an inverse relationship between the two. Very, very important. And so as we look at how our restaurants operate and how our bars operate, the distance is absolutely the key thing. As we got reports, and we're still getting them from health departments all over the state, but as we got reports over the weekend, it was clear that most restaurants were doing an amazingly good job. Most bars were doing a good job. But it's clear that we have had some outliers, ones who just were not doing what they should do. If we're going to make this recovery, if we're going to bring the economy back, people have to feel safe when they go out. They have to feel that the rules are being followed when they go to a restaurant. They have to feel that the rules are being followed when they go to a bar. So let me read from the order that Dr. Acton signed, and again, that was based upon recommendations from, let me pull this up. I have it right here. This is based on recommendations from the working group. And I'm just going to read part of it. Restaurants and bars to reopen. All restaurants, bars, and other like businesses and operations in the state which have the on-site consumption of food, beer, wine, and liquor are permitted to reopen for full dine-in service within the state so long as all workplace safety standards are met. These businesses and operations are encouraged to either reopen or remain open if they have not ceased operation during the prior stay-at-home order. Business and operations shall continue, and here we get to the key part. Business and operations shall continue to comply with the social distancing requirements as defined in this order, including by maintaining 6-foot social distancing for both employees and for members of the public at all times, including but not limited to when any customers are standing in line. Reservations are to be limited to more than 10 persons. Customers, and here is a key part, particularly for the bars. Customers must be seated when consuming food, beer, wine, and liquor on the premises of the business. So it applies to restaurants, applies to bars. Customers must be seated when consuming food, beer, wine, and liquor on the premises of the business. And it continues on, but that is a key part. So what we saw in some bars this weekend with pictures, some pictures that made national news, we saw where in some places customers were not following the rules, and the people who were running the bar were not taking responsibility. So both have to do that. The owner of the bar, the people who are running the bar, they have an obligation to control the environment. And if they cannot control the environment, they should make the wise judgment not to open. Or if they get in a situation where they can't control it, they need to close. I want to talk about enforcement. And again, I want to make it very clear. At least as far as we could tell, the majority of restaurants were doing a great job. Most of the bars were doing a decent job, but there were some outliers, and this jeopardizes, frankly, our ability to move forward as a state. So I've asked our team to come up with a plan, and they have the following plan. We are marshaling all the resources at our disposal to assemble a large contingent of law enforcement and health officials from across state agencies and from our local communities. We will coordinate with them as part of the Department of Public Safety's Ohio Investigative Unit, known as OIU, and the work that they do. So we're going to bring in people from different departments and put them into that unit. So they will surge in to conduct safety compliance checks in crowded bars and restaurants. They will issue administrative citations that can result in the revocation of liquor licenses. Further, they will work with municipal prosecutors to take potential criminal action against these bad actors. So that is what they will be doing. We will be working very closely with local officials on this. The local health departments will stay involved as well.